We're live. Hi, Jihong. Welcome to Venture with Grace.
Good morning. How are
I
you?
I'm good. So I wanna maybe start with for the audience to learn more about you. So right now you're our MD at Samsung, and then but previously you were a software engineer and you were an investor in like many great companies. Actually, browsing through your portfolio, I feel like it was really cool that like to see like Anthropic and many more recognizable brands. So why don't we start with like what were some core lessons that you've learned early on in your career before entering Samsung Ventures?
Oh, great question. Maybe I can go through my journey
Mhm.
uh, a little bit and then talk about that. So I studied double E in computer science at UC Berkeley for my undergraduate. After I graduate from Berkeley, my first job was with Lucent Technologies. I worked there as a software engineer. I was part of their CDN group, Content Delivery Network group.
Mhm.
And then after that, I joined a couple of smaller startup companies as a software engineer in the wireless networking space. I had a good time, but wanted to transition into business side, get some experience with management consulting. I got an opportunity to work with PricewaterhouseCoopers
Mhm.
in Asia. So I did a number of projects around marketing, CRM in China, in Korea for different enterprise customers. There was a journey, quite interesting. Transitioning from pure engineering background to management consulting was a steep learning curve, but it was quite interesting as well. I did that for a couple of years. Then came back to Berkeley to join their MBA program, and during my MBA years, I had some experience with investment banking.
Mhm.
So in the summer, I spent 8 weeks or so with HSBC Investment Banking Division.
Mhm.
And then also during my second year, worked with a local mid-market investment banking firm called JMP Group. Worked in their research department, supporting a couple of different research analysts. So that was fun. And then after I graduated from business school, I joined the hedge fund as a research analyst. Um, that was quite interesting as well. We were looking at various public equity opportunities globally across different geos. We were thinking about whether we should take a long position or short position on those companies. Um, and then I joined Samsung Ventures. So that's how I got into venture capital about 12 years ago. And then been here investing in software, AI, robotics, consumer as well as enterprise on behalf of our business units in Samsung, and having a good time and enjoying my work here, meeting with startup founders as well as other investors and thinking about technology.
Totally. I wonder, maybe like we can start with, what does Samsung focus on? Obviously, Samsung's like a well-known electronic company in
Mhm.
general, and like it provides like, phone and like many other like different electronic products. That's like from the outside as like what we can
Mhm.
see. But since like I feel like, as we chatted prior to this, like, over lunch, like Samsung have different departments, and then like
Mhm.
under um different departments there are different investment groups. Maybe we could give the audience a little bit background on like, how does Samsung think about investing in general?
Yes, one of the things that I wanted to do on this platform was to introduce Samsung Ventures and,
Mhm.
to the extent possible, tell the audience a little bit about,
Mhm.
Samsung Group as a whole. So it's a massive entity. It's a conglomerate
Mhm.
based out of South Korea.
Mhm.
There's about 30 plus business units and operating companies in different
Mhm.
industries within Samsung, ranging from semiconductors and
Mhm.
smartphones and TVs, other home appliance products, to battery, as well as financial services, insurance companies, and construction businesses, and so on and so forth. So it's a pretty massive entity. For example, not many people know this, but Burj Khalifa in Dubai, the tallest tower
Mhm.
building in the world, actually was constructed by Samsung. So
Oh, wow.
Samsung's not just in smartphones and semiconductors, but in many other
Mhm.
things. So
Mhm.
in terms of just to provide a sense on the scale, the Samsung group wide revenue is roughly speaking around $300 billion
Mhm.
across the entire group. The biggest company within Samsung is Samsung Electronics, and Samsung Electronics alone is about $200 billion, roughly speaking, in annual revenue. So it's a pretty
Mhm.
massive entity. So I'm at Samsung Ventures, and we were set up about 24 or 5 years ago
Mhm.
as a separate investment company. And then it's unlike other CVCs, Samsung Ventures, the way we were set up is a little bit unique, and because of our conglomerate structure. So it doesn't make a lot of sense for someone like us to be part of one business and then
Mhm.
work with other businesses to drive their strategic investments. Instead of
Mhm.
that, we were set up as a separate investment company, and we would act as a GP, and we would set up various dedicated funds for our, for example, semiconductor businesses, smartphone and consumer electronics businesses, battery businesses, and so on. And then our business units essentially comprise our LP base,
Mhm.
and then we invest out of the fund. So that's how we are structured. And the key mandate for us is to find strategic partners. So by strategic partners, we're referring to startup companies, private companies that can work with any of our business units in a very meaningful way, in a strategic way. And
Mhm.
then we want to find them, discover collaboration opportunities, partnership opportunities, and then based on that, we would set up and build an investment rationale, and
Mhm.
then essentially make the strategic investment to support the collaboration.
Mm, I wonder, so to think about like strategic companies, so like I feel like some of your portfolio are obviously, like I can understand from like, called like anthropic or like some of these more towards like the foundational model set of things.
Mhm.
But I also see some really interesting ones like ClassPass or like BigCommerce. How does
Mhm.
Samsung think about these kind of investments?
So it's a little bit complicated if we
Mhm.
go into the details, but
Mhm.
one thing that I want to maybe explain to the audience is we have a special vehicle
Mhm.
that we also use to make financial investments. So those would be non-strategic. And then it's a special vehicle that we have that enables us to move quicker um, without strong collaboration angle with our business units. So in certain cases, we were able to use this vehicle to make financial investments. So ClassPass was one of them. We thought there would be an interesting angle around collaboration.
Mhm.
One of them could be, distributing their subscription services
Mhm.
on top of our mobile phones or other Samsung products,
Mhm.
go to market together. But before that got materialized, we actually made the investment in advance of that using our special vehicle.
Mhm.
Anthropic was another case where we used a special vehicle to move quickly because if you think about what was happening in
Mhm.
2023, these deals were very hot and moving at very fast pace.
Right.
So, we had to use our special vehicle to try to get in the round and then
Mhm.
establish the relationship and then leverage that to look for opportunities for collaboration, partnership between Anthropic and many of our business units.
Totally. So, for example, for like an Anthropic, how do you think about the collaboration on the collaboration angle? So, like, let's say I feel like I think most people are familiar with Anthropic, or let's say they're like competitive company like ChatGPT. Everybody have used like
Mhm,
either or both. And I
mhm,
wonder when it comes to like thinking about from investing perspective, since like I feel like Anthropic's at like a pretty later stage company as like the Series D was
mhm,
valued over like billions. And I wonder how do you think about from like a financial return perspective if something would like call it like 3x later? And since like um right now like the entire I feel like of course they're like an industry leader in a way, but like I wonder what's your thought process on like um forecasting like certain company like this to take over, like how do you kind of like adjust the valuation to these type of companies? And in terms of like the collaboration with like a company like Samsung, I mean of course you can go into as much details as you want to, but like how do you think about from the business collaboration angle, how do you like kind of inject a company like this into the entire like ecosystem?
Great question. So, we invested in Anthropic in early 2023. So almost right after ChatGPT came out and took the world by storm,
Mhm,
we felt that this is going to be a very important technology
mhm,
for the industry and for the world, for people. So we wanted to think about different ways to partner with many companies in the space. So we have conversations going on with many companies in Gen AI space.
mhm,
Within Samsung, there are many different use cases.
mhm,
Some can go on to our products to create differentiated, superior experience for our users on smartphones, for example, with various features that are enabled by AI technologies. Some applications include internal use of these technologies
mhm,
for helping our engineers code faster or automating business processes or extracting insights from our database. So there are many, many different applications of this technology. So, and Samsung, as we discussed, is a massive organization. So we have a lot of use cases. So we want to talk to different partners to explore different collaboration possibilities and
mhm,
opportunities. So that was kind of the backdrop from which we approached Anthropic when they were raising Series C. And then since then, the investment has done pretty well,
mhm,
both strategically as well as financially, as you know. The company has received a lot of attention from the market with Google and Amazon coming in to support the company as well. And now, they're making tremendous progress on the
mhm,
technology side as well as on the business side. So we are really happy that we have a company like Anthropic in our portfolio, and we have a relationship, and we want to work on many opportunities that we can work together with these guys.
mhm,
And then, having said that, we are looking at there are many, many different technologies getting developed in this space,
mhm,
GenAI space, from applications to different, models, especially on the smaller language model side, on device AI side. So we are talking to many partners there. We are happy to talk to other partners that we haven't got in touch with for various applications.
mhm.
So this is a very important area for Samsung.
I wonder, I wanna maybe like dive a little bit deeper into the, on-device AI side of
Mhm,
things. So Anthropic
mhm,
is obviously AI, but
mhm,
there's like, there are other different like AI applications within the electronic ecosystem.
mhm,
How do you identify what are some like new innovations that could be actually adapt into different devices or like different like newer hardwares? And how do you think about like the cloud-based AI
mhm,
industry in general?
mhm. So we want to take a holistic approach there, I
Mhm,
think. There are companies building massive frontier models that are very
mhm,
capable of doing many, many different things, for general purpose.
mhm,
Companies like OpenAI, Anthropic is there. Their models are very big and very powerful. They need to run from the cloud.
mhm,
But at the same time, for us, and we want to be able to work with these guys. for many different use cases. But at the same time, Samsung, especially our mobile business, our consumer electronics business, their core is to build very useful devices that can add value to consumers. So from that perspective, we are also quite interested in having AI capabilities on the device directly. So, and there are certain benefits that's associated with having on-device capabilities. For example, it's more cost-effective. It's cheaper. You don't have to worry about infrastructure and cloud to run these AI technology. They can just run on top of your own device, and because of that, it's faster. It's near real time. Latency is very low, and then it's more private. You don't have to share your information or data with others. It'll stay on your device, and that's quite valuable to many consumers. It's more secure because your data doesn't have to leave your device, and then so on and so forth. And all these things combined together can lead to personalization in an easier path. So,
I'm sorry. I want to double click on like the on-device AI is like more secure. I've seen that like later, like I've seen that like happening as like a trend right now. And I wonder like why is cloud-based AI not safe? Like obviously, sure, like hackers could be able to hack, but like I'm sure the hackers would be able to hack like a hardware as well. What's a kind of like the technology on the back end that like, prevents like on-device AI from hacking versus like the cloud-based AI?
So it's not. I guess you don't want to say it's perfectly safe if it's on device, and then if it's not on device, it's not very safe. Instead of that, I think the approach that we are taking is we want to minimize exposure. I think that's very important in establishing security. The more exposure you have, it just becomes less secure. So if it can be contained within your own device, right, then we believe that consumers will feel more comfortable. And then, because there's just like, minimal risk of your data or information getting eavesdropped in on the transfer process from your device to, some data centers or a cloud, or if it's stored somewhere in the cloud, then, then there is additional risk associated with that. So from that perspective, and then, also from privacy perspective, it's just important that even if it's secure in somebody else's infrastructure, some people may not want to have that. So from that perspective, from privacy and security perspective, this is an important technology we believe we need to have. And then once we have privacy and security around your data, then based on that data and that environment, we can, better embark on personalization journey, where AI would be able to access various information about you, quite private, your location, your preferences, your activities on these devices, and then based on those information, make recommendations, or maybe potentially in the future, take some interesting actions on your behalf and really making a difference.
For on-device I wonder like so, but like right now, since like although our like hardware devices are like with us, but for any app that we're using, let's call it like Amazon or like when you're like online shopping or anything, it's still like connected to the cloud. Um and your personal data are still kind of on the cloud, right? If you're using iPhone, I bet it's kind of like, although it's not necessarily like, yeah, I guess iPhone's like a bad example of on-device AI, but like, like for any app that you have, technically your data are still uploaded onto the cloud. How is like the on-device AI kind of like make that differences in the future?
Yeah, so on-device AI will not be able to take over the whole thing.
Yeah.
And then it's not going to be able to take all of your data so that you can do all these things that you're already doing with Google, with Amazon and others. on device purely, and then like without any connectivity to the cloud.
Mhm.
That's not realistic. So it's gonna be a combination of cloud-based services that are more powerful, and for certain types of services, you have to have internet connection. You have to have internet connection to be able
Mhm.
to make purchases, to listen to music,
Yeah, yeah.
to watch videos. For certain services, you have to have connectivity.
Mhm.
So on device is not going to be replacing those, but
Mhm.
there are certain private conversations you want to have that you want translated or summarized without exposing that information to the cloud, and certain use cases that are more
Mhm.
suitable for on-device AI,
Mhm.
where the technology is getting there. Technology is getting there. So, we are trying to get the model smaller, run faster, more powerful in a very limited form factor on
Mhm.
smartphone or on PC that is capable of handling more tasks. And
Mhm.
then if it's done that way, then we believe it's generally better for the users and for consumers. So it's not going to be, again, replacing the whole thing,
Mhm.
whole services. But for certain areas, I think there is a lot of value. And we
Mhm.
see a lot of startup companies trying to get involved with their own models, very small models, very efficient, quite impressive.
Mhm.
So we are having many discussions with them as well.
I have a question about like what is small language model? Because I feel like this term keep coming up
Hmm.
into different conversations. I feel like in the past year, people are really like honing in on like the big language model,
Hmm.
but what is like small language model entail? Is that just like smaller database or like more niche database, or how does it kind
I
of?
think one way to, I don't think there is like a formal definition of
Mhm.
what is small and what is large, but I think it's just like people when they talk about it. I think generally speaking, if it's in the tens of billions of parameters,
Mm,
70 billion parameters, for example, or
mhm,
several hundred billion parameters, or even trillion parameters models. These are typically called large language models. When we talk about small language models, those are typically in the single digit billions of parameters.
mhm,
And then because they're small, they
mhm,
can actually be installed on devices like smartphone or laptops, and
mm,
then handle tasks there. They require less memory. If it requires too much hardware resources, then physically it's impossible to put these
mhm,
models and run them on our devices. They have to be small enough. Generally speaking, low single digit billions of parameters. And we have seen companies that are working on sub-billion parameter model that can,
mhm.
understand your prompt and generate output. Quite interesting.
Mm. I wonder, um, in terms of like, thinking about the different AI models like playing into a role in hardware
Mhm.
devices, can we chat a little bit more about like, what are some like frontier AI models out there and like what will actually plays like into the future of consumer electronics and mobile
Yeah.
technology in general?
Yes. So quite interesting topic.
Mhm,
Um, I think right now we have a lot of interest around small language models or on-device AI,
mhm,
and for that particular purpose, there are some interesting architectures coming
mhm,
up. So as you know, large language models, mainly based on transformer architecture,
mhm,
highly accurate, highly performant.
mhm,
But you know, one of the downside of transformer architecture, although there are improvements taking place and it's getting better
mhm,
and better, is the speed from our
mhm,
perspective. And because of the quadratic scaling factor, the longer the context,
mhm,
it just takes more time with transformer architecture.
mhm,
Um, there are other emerging architectures, and one of them that we were paying attention to is this architecture called state space model.
mhm,
And there's an open source project called Mamba that's getting a lot of attention from the market as well.
mhm,
And their models typically are small today. And then in terms of their performance and accuracy and capabilities, it's coming up to match transformer-based models. So those frontier architectures that have not yet been fully proven out in the market are, technologies that we're paying attention to see very promising. And we believe there are many use cases and potential for using newer architectures. So we're paying attention to that. And then also its implication on consumer devices and mobile devices. We think it's going to be quite interesting because of all these AI technologies that are very powerful. Essentially, these technologies increase the capability or performance of any device out there, any smart device. And because of that, we believe there is good chance of having different form factors for the devices getting out there and actually making our lives easier. So instead of just using smartphone with display and then trying to launch the app and then take actions there, perhaps there can be devices that can see what we are seeing and they can listen to what we are hearing. And then, other contextual informations like our current location or other things. Basically, AI can make sense of all these information and based on the context, make recommendations or even take actions. And there are a lot of discussions happening today about, AI agents or AI assistants that can do more than just answer questions about anything you're interested in, but actually go ahead and actually take some simple actions, and then maybe they move on to taking more complicated actions on your behalf, sometimes with your permission or sometimes autonomously. So with these capabilities coming out, we think it's gonna be potentially disruptive to the devices that we are so used to using, like smartphones or smartwatches or other devices or laptops. Obviously, these technologies will make existing devices also smarter, but can also give rise to other devices that we haven't really used before that are becoming quite usable and interesting and value-adding to consumers.
I wonder, how do you think about from like a hardware perspective? Do you believe in like there will be like a newer hardware versus like the existing ones like a phone or TV to come out? Like because I feel like there is previously there was like the rabbit little pin and the human pin and like
Yeah.
there's like the AR VR glasses from like Apple Meta. Like I
Mhm.
wonder what's Samsung's take or like what's your take on like the future of the hardware devices and how is it connected to AI? Obviously, you mentioned about like the small language model. What are some newer, like what are some other trends that you are excited about to see implement into like the newer version of like the hardware?
Yes. So, we are watching these trends and these, attempts quite, quite carefully. And then, I think there will continue to be different attempts, different ideas. But at the core, there will be AI. They will all be powered by AI. And from our perspective, we want to stay and maintain our leadership in the consumer device market. So we have announced, many partnerships with companies like Google and, Qualcomm as well in the past conferences, and working with our key partners to think about different form factors, different devices that can, provide new experiences, maybe more immersive experiences to our consumers. So there is an ongoing effort to build and market and launch these devices. And at the last CES, we actually not just devices but also on the robots.
Mhm.
consumer robots that will be running around your home and then,
Mhm.
answering questions or helping you with potentially some chores down the road around kitchen,
Mhm.
and then, give you information that you need. So we are experimenting with many different ideas and looking at technologies that will be required to
Mhm.
build these devices, not just around software and AI, but also around the semiconductor and chips, as well as power and battery, and different type of display technologies and
Mhm.
sensors that we need to get to build. So it's a very, we have a very comprehensive approach
Mhm.
to these devices, and it's gonna take some time. But we believe there will be interesting opportunities to bring completely new devices to our consumers.
Mm. I wonder when it comes to thinking about like all the different like hardware in the general landscape. You mentioned about like for example the robot device at home.
Mhm.
Um what's the outlook on like what will be considered as like a well-rounded AI agent? So like let's say like right now we can already see like Alexa can turn off the light or
Mhm.
like turn on the light, or like let's say there's like the little I think it's called Rambo. I don't remember the name of the robot. So like it's like the
Mhm.
little like cleaning robot, and I
Mhm.
wonder um in the future are people trying to make into like a one piece of technology rule it's all, or like a literally like a little robot person like following you, or would you say it's more towards like one specific bot for one specific task? And what are some like newer like interesting innovations that you're seeing in the market that are just generally fundamentally more differentiated than the existing products
Mhm.
out there?
Mhm. Yes. So robotics is getting more interesting
Mhm.
for us. We think it's a huge opportunity for us to take a look at
Mhm.
and engage in. Today Samsung doesn't have a huge business around robotics, but I think the time is coming
Mhm.
when there will be robots doing maybe not just one single very specific task.
Mhm.
We see a lot of them in manufacturing floors or industrial facilities, doing one thing very fast, very
Mhm.
efficiently, and much better than humans do.
Mhm.
Um, Around homes, it's probably hard to build a robot that we are thinking about just doing one task, but it's more like a general purpose robot that
Mhm.
is able to take care of different types of tasks
Mhm.
around your household. So these days we're meeting with many companies trying to
Mhm.
develop what's called RFMs, or robotic
Mhm.
foundation models. Essentially, foundation models, kind of like large language model or vision language model,
Mhm.
but their output would be robotic actions.
Mhm.
Um, and so, if they're successful, it's going to be quite disruptive to
Mhm.
the industry, to our daily lives. There are big companies like Google and Tesla and
Mhm.
others working on building their own general purpose robots,
Mhm.
sometimes in the form of humanoids. It doesn't have to be, but there are technologies getting developed, and a lot of capital is being invested to build these
Mhm.
models that can actually serve as the brain
Mhm.
for different types of robots. And companies are working hard to gather training data and improve their models. And we see performance getting better and better every month. So that's an area of interest to us, very important as we think about what's next for Samsung beyond consumer devices and mobile
Mhm.
devices. Will it be home robotics
Mhm.
or something else? But it's a topic of a lot of interest to us,
Mhm.
and we're looking at it very seriously.
Mm. I wonder, maybe we could talk a little bit more about like, working with Samsung and like,
Mhm.
you guys have invested in many really interesting companies. Like we could maybe start with like a few companies that you feel like are really interesting to you. For example, I was looking at your resume or like I was looking at your on your LinkedIn. So you guys invested in like advanced driver assistance system company, Phantom AI, or
Mhm.
there were like early on you guys invest in like SentinelOne. Like there's like a lot of really interesting company in your portfolio. Why don't we start with like can you walk us through like one company that you found like a in the electronic space or in like the data or like AI space that you find really interesting? And then what's your thinking framework on like onboarding them into like the Samsung ecosystem, or maybe from a
Mhm.
financial level, what's the diligence process on like, looking at the entire
Mhm.
ecosystem and then finding out that one company that will succeed in the space?
Yes. Great question. Wanted to talk about this topic um, during this session. So thanks for bringing that up. So, we have had the opportunity and privilege to meet with many interesting startups and technologies, and then, explore collaboration opportunities and partnership together with our business unit and, startup companies together. And then, sometimes it takes time. Sometimes it takes time. Um, we have seen quite a few successes where both parties came together and generated a lot of synergy.
Mhm,
And that's ultimate goal that we want to achieve.
mhm,
As we are a strategic investor and at the same time financial investor as well.
mhm,
So that's what we try to do. If I were to give an example, I think a good example would be this company called Pluto TV that was acquired by Viacom. We
mhm,
invested in the company as we were growing our FAST business. So FAST stands for Free Ad Supported TV, and it's
mhm,
one of the fastest growing service business within Samsung and in the industry as well.
mhm,
We have a service called Samsung TV Plus, and it comes
mhm,
together with our smart TVs. It's
mhm,
installed, and the benefit of that is you don't have to, subscribe to cable TV
mhm,
services. These are in the U.S. around 100 channels or so, around news, lifestyle, movies, comedy, various genres, almost like watching TVs, like linear channels,
mhm,
lean back experience. It's not really on demand. It's
mhm,
coupled together with advertising. So that's TV Plus, and a lot of our TV users watch our TV Plus because it's just lean back and consuming news for the day or anything they like to watch. Um, and in the early days, we needed content partners. We needed content partners who can provide channels of interesting content. And Pluto TV was providing that.
mhm,
So the match was great. The fit was great. They have interesting channels, but they needed distribution. We have distribution, but we needed channel partners, content partners. So what happened was we introduced this company through our own event. Samsung Ventures host what's called a Partners Day event, and we invited them to come over to our Partners Day event that we were organizing for CES several years ago.
mhm,
Invited our executives from business units as well,
mhm,
and put them in the same room together. We had a discussion about the company, their technology, what they're capable of, and then how we can work together
mhm,
as a team. And then that eventually led to partnership as well as strategic investment.
mhm,
So, and then the company had a good exit.
mhm,
So we were happy from an investor standpoint, just like other investors and VCs. And at the same time, they were a key partner and they still are providing content and channels to Samsung TV.
mhm, mhm,
So it's a long lasting relationship, very synergistic. We still have a good relationship with the founders and the management of
mhm,
Pluto TV, even after they got acquired. So that's one of the success case, and we want to create more
mhm,
cases like this where we find a good opportunity for both our business units and startup companies to work together,
mhm.
and that usually translate into better financial gain for us as an investor.
I have a question around that. So like I wonder, let's say if I'm a startup,
Mhm.
I want to work with Samsung and like what is a process took from like becoming a design partner to like actually closing a deal? I'm sure
Mhm.
like it's case by case, but like I wonder like
Mhm.
let's say like I talk to Jihong and like maybe you can direct me to your BD team or like partnership team.
Mhm.
How does the relationship kind of like formulated with Samsung
Mhm.
internally, and
Mhm.
how fast can people like kind of progress a kind of like distribution relationship? Let's say I create a free streaming platform and I come to Samsung, like
Mhm.
is it just immediately overnight? Like I will be distributed onto like like 2 million TV in the world, or like how does that kind of like work?
You see.
Um,
Yeah, great question. So, really, as you mentioned, to your point, it's really case by case,
mhm,
because we meet with companies across the spectrum,
mhm,
and sometimes they're in very early stage developing the idea and concept around the technology.
mhm,
Sometimes, it's companies that's more mature, they have
mhm,
customers, their product and technology have been proven in the field, and
mhm,
they're looking to, go to market together with someone like Samsung.
mhm,
So it's a huge spectrum. It really depends on the type of technology as well.
mhm,
But typically, and this I think will be useful for the listeners who are working on startup companies, as they think about engaging someone like Samsung. So and it can happen through different channels. Sometimes they meet with our business unit directly through
mhm,
their partnership organization. Samsung is a massive entity, so they have so many different teams that have different touch points with startup companies. So any the discussion can start from any of these channels.
mhm,
The way we work is, as a strategic investment arm, we have close relationship with the decision makers and executives.
mhm,
So, we have typically have an intro call or meeting to introduce ourselves, and at the same
mhm,
time try to learn as much as possible about what they're working on, what their uniqueness is, differentiation, how they're
mhm,
stronger than their competitors, and then essentially try to learn as much as possible so we can properly introduce these companies and their solutions to the right people in the right organizations. And then, sometimes the response we get is, it's not
mhm,
really, what we were looking at. Sometimes the response is, oh, this is what we need, and we need it right now. So it's
mhm,
that's, how different it could be in terms
mhm,
of, and then that sort of sets the tone for how long the potential engagement can take. If
mhm,
it's not immediately interesting to our business unit stakeholders and
mhm,
executives, and it may take a while. It may be put on the back burner and then maybe get revisited a year or two later. If it's
mhm,
immediately interesting, and then, for example, if the business unit is working on their next flagship launch, like a next smartphone launch, and they need this technology for that, then it's gonna be quite fast. Um, and then, so once we identify that where this technology is in the spectrum of interest from our business unit,
mhm,
then we would try to facilitate the discussions as much as possible and help them navigate internally
mhm,
within Samsung, because from a
mhm,
small startup company's perspective, if they look at Samsung, it's a massive organization. A lot of executives sit in different country in South Korea, and then there's language barrier as well as cultural barrier. And
mhm,
startups, they want to get hit the ground running really fast as soon as possible. But with big corporations, as you know, there are processes and there are
mhm,
meetings to be held, and there are many stakeholders that get involved in the decision making process. So the cadence is like very very different, very very different. So we sometimes have to explain and educate the founders that this is happening, but it's going to take some time. It's not going to be like next week. They need like their legal to look at the documents, and before they sign it, they have to get the approval from the CEO as well as
mhm,
CFO. So we have to sometimes explain that,
mhm,
but try to take them through the process and try to accelerate where possible as an internal advocate for our
Mhm.
potential portfolio companies and or our portfolio companies to
Mm.
get to actually get to the finish line.
Mm.
And then, because that's what we want to do, we want to help our portfolio companies or other startup companies that we want to invest in potentially work
Mhm.
better and more efficiently with our business units.
Mm. I wonder what is a specific, I guess like not specific, but like a more, what are some like unique sourcing funnel that like Samsung use or like different lens that Samsung use from um I guess the strategic perspective. And I'm not sure like if for example, let's say um Subtle Medical, it's like one of the companies that you guys have invested in
Mhm.
recently. Um like, you know, it's like faster, safer, smaller medical imaging technology.
Mhm.
And or for example, let's say like the you know, Verdagy, I don't really know if I'm pronouncing it right, but like
Yeah,
so that's
Vertigy.
a company, yeah, so that's a company
Mhm.
that like doing large scale production of green hydrogen. I
Yes.
feel like those seems like very not necessarily like super direct with like the Samsung's like existing
Mhm.
line of
Mhm.
product that I know.
Mhm.
I mean,
Mhm.
obviously you guys have built like the greatest tower in Dubai. Like so it's like I'm sure I don't know everything, but what are some like unique lens that you're using in terms of like deal sourcing perspective, or are they like primarily for like financial um primarily for like financial investment?
Mhm.
Um
Mhm.
I guess like how do you kind of like diligence certain deals to make sure that
Mhm.
like it's kind of like aligned with the business thesis or
Yeah.
portfolio construction for the fund?
Great question. So I think the short answer is I don't think the way we source deals and diligence deals are
Mhm,
that different from other investors.
mhm,
On the sourcing front, we have been investing in the US for
mhm,
over 10 years
mhm,
and quite actively, around 80 to $100 million a year.
mhm,
Globally, we deploy somewhere in between 2 to $300 million globally
mhm,
in different geos. So we have an extensive network of co-investors
mhm,
comprised of both other CVCs as well as institutional VC firms.
mhm,
So we have a pretty strong relationship with other investors. So we get recommended to meet companies from them. We meet with companies at conferences. We have other personal networks that we leverage to have calls and meetings with different companies. So on the sourcing front, I don't think we're that different from other investors. In the diligence, we typically work with our business unit engineers. So, for example, I think maybe this is good to mention. So, Samsung is most known for its phones,
mhm,
TVs, and
mhm,
other consumer electronics products, maybe semiconductor as well. But as I mentioned earlier, there's like 30 plus business units and operating companies within Samsung in different industries.
mhm,
So, in the case of Vertigy, you mentioned they're in the hydrogen space, and
mhm,
they build very interesting, electrolyzer that can handle, renewable energy sources to break down
mhm,
water molecules to generate hydrogen.
mhm,
And they have many interesting investors such as Khosla, Shell, and Temasek, and other interesting
mhm,
investors working with them to bring their equipment to market.
mhm,
So for that one, it wasn't our electronics business that sponsored the investment. It was one
mhm,
of our what we call EPC,
mhm,
engineering, procurement, and construction businesses within Samsung
mhm,
that have a lot of interest around green energy, renewable energy, and climate tech.
mhm,
So we actually have a fund that we manage on their behalf,
mhm,
and they have uh, they had a lot of interest in connecting with Vertigy, speaking to them, and how to
mhm,
go to market using their equipment.
mhm,
They do a lot of projects around energy, so the fit was quite good, and that's how the deal happened.
mhm,
So we have again about 15 or 16 businesses across semiconductor, biotech, even biotech and insurtech,
mhm,
fintech, climate tech, in addition to our mobile devices or consumer electronics that we work with
mhm.
very closely and look for strategic partnerships and investments.
Mm. I wonder, how do you keep on track with like these different many sectors all at once? Because I feel like it really requires a lot of like domain knowledge in each different subsector. I'm sure with the industry knowledge and help from like different department from Samsung will
Mhm,
provide a
mhm,
lot of like value. But on the other hand, how do you kind of like keep on track of the different opportunities that comes to you, or like this one seems like it's come from like internally, like people have
mhm,
already have a lot of conversation about a particular company or like product and services. I
mhm,
guess like how do you process the different subsector of domain knowledge? How do you kind of like
mhm,
educate
mhm,
yourself in
mhm.
different industries?
Yes. So, we have, so Samsung Ventures, there are about, roughly speaking, 100 people
Yeah.
working at Samsung Ventures, about
Mhm,
half of them on the investment side. And then, we have people like myself
mhm,
based outside of Korea in different overseas offices in US and Europe and Israel and China,
mhm,
India, Japan. We have investors based in Korea, and they are grouped by business units that they work with or industries. So, for example, like there is a semiconductor investment team.
mhm,
There is, mobile consumer electronics as well as software
mhm,
investment team and battery investment team and so on.
mhm,
So, in terms of how we work together, we if there is a deal, for example, like an AI deal in the U.S., then someone like myself could get involved, and then someone from our HQ in Korea on the
mhm,
software investment team, they get involved. So we work together, and then we
mhm,
also get our business unit guys involved,
mhm,
who are experts in AI. So we get the reference from them as well as just
mhm,
like other investors. From we reach out to our contacts in the industry to get their reference, and then we do some customer reference as well to build a picture around the opportunity as
mhm.
comprehensive as possible. Um, and then based on that, we try to make our best decision.
I wonder, I really like what you said about like collectively like making this decision, and like I wonder another like different companies, right? Like you guys invested in a company called Loom
Mhm.
AI that was eventually gotten like, I believe it gotten bought by Roblox, and I
Yes.
wonder it came out with YC, and then obviously it's like founded by
Mhm.
like DreamWork or Lucasfilm
Yes.
alumni.
Yep.
um,
Yep.
I feel like, selecting companies out of the YC batch is, like, really hard, as, like, there's so many amazing companies all at
Mhm.
once, and then they're all, like, getting the stamp by, like, a really, great organization like YC, and
Mhm.
I wonder what's his thought process on, like, um, picking these, like, companies through each batch of YC?
Mhm. Mhm. So, YC batch and the companies that graduate from YC program quite, interesting
Mhm,
and very respectable. We look at many different accelerators and incubators.
mhm,
So we definitely look at YC. We pay close attention to them. We respect them. The companies coming out of YC, very, very interesting. Their technology is very strong. We also look at 500 Global, for example. We also look
mhm,
at plug and play, and then university accelerators like Sartex or Skydeck at Berkeley.
mhm,
We also work closely with MIT. So we try to cover as much as possible because we don't know what's gonna what
mhm,
we want to be able to understand the new ideas, promising ones,
mhm,
especially in the startup landscape. So and then we engage them, and then we go through our process to understand the fit.
mhm,
Of course, there has to be some a good match
mhm,
between what they want to do and where they're headed, uh, you know that, and then where our business unit is headed and what they have on their roadmap. There has to be a good match.
mhm,
So we try to figure that out as we go through the process, and then as we learn more about their capabilities, so, sometimes it's a great fit. Sometimes it's like a perfect fit with our
mhm,
smartphone or with our semiconductor products. and sometimes the fit is not quite there yet,
Mhm.
then we would continue the relationship, but maybe engage at the right time, potentially
Mhm.
in the future. So that's how we approach generally. We keep our eyes on all these companies, interesting companies coming out of various accelerators,
Mhm.
incubators, and then we want to have a discussion. As long as they're interested in exploring an opportunity to work with someone like Samsung, then we would be a good partner to them,
Mhm.
and we want to be a helpful partner.
Mhm.
So from that perspective, we approach to these companies, and hopefully we'll find good opportunities for them to work with Samsung, and then also we get to invest in them.
Mhm. I wonder, so like I guess like how do you select like, which part of the new trends to tap into versus not? So obviously recently there's like a huge wave of like edge technologies.
Mhm.
Um like how do you I guess like evaluate if a technology is at the ripe of like consumer like commercialized versus something that's like should be stay in the lab for a little longer.
Yeah, so for that, we have regular discussions and meetings with
Mhm,
a lot of people. Of course, with our business unit leaders as they think about when to launch, different types of products.
mhm,
And then also with our peers and the venture capital community about, different types of businesses or solutions getting traction in the market,
mhm,
both in the enterprise setting or on the consumer side. So it's constant exchange of information between our business units internally on how they view the market, the timing
mhm,
of the product and solution, as well as what's kind of the market's view
mhm,
on. So sometimes our business unit gets it right, and then they go to market with a product, and it's a huge success, and they make a lot of money. That's great for our business unit. Sometimes they wait too long before the trend. They get involved in the trend. So it's a constant conversation. We try to kind of figure out as much as possible and make our best decisions and bets. Um, but I guess that's how we try to address this issue of timing. It's
mhm,
just kind of hard to get, and we're not right all the time. But we try to speak to the best minds on both sides, both internally, externally,
mhm,
and then try to make the best decision.
mm. I wanna be mindful of time, and I wanna maybe have like one real question and then like a quick 1 minute fire round.
Okay.
Um, so I wonder, since I feel like you have like invested in very like various domain of like deep tech slash like the frontier technologies as well as like consumer tech in general. What does your content dial look like to educate yourself? As you mentioned, like you would spoke to obviously smart people, but
Mhm.
not everybody have like the access to like the top frontier engineer or like industry experts. What would you suggest people to do to like study a particular subject or like study the deep tech slash consumer tech area?
Very good question. I think the answer, from my perspective, is not, there are no secrets in these things. There are a lot of information out there, especially these
Mhm,
days, on YouTube, on podcast, on your show. There's a
mhm,
lot
thank
of,
you.
experts who are willing to come on these platforms to share their knowledge, their insights, their views. Some of them are not quite right. Some of them are, very insightful. You have to sort of make the decision on yourself to do
Mhm,
it. But I think there are wealth of information out there. So the more time you spend, just kind of understanding and trying to study the trend will only help you. And then there
mhm,
are also many papers coming out if you want to really go deep into certain
mhm,
technologies around AI, around models. There are many papers. And these days, ChatGPT and tools like
Mhm.
Claude, very good at summarization, very good partner in trying to understand the concept that's maybe hard to understand without a proper instructor or coach.
Mhm.
They do a great job of explaining difficult concepts and
Mhm.
summarizing ideas. So they can be, I think, also useful. And for us, Samsung Ventures, I guess we have the privilege and opportunity to talk to internal experts. So, for example, on the topic of AI, we have an organization called Samsung Research. So we have a lot of PhDs there who can, talk to us to explain different ideas or trends. So we have that resource. But I guess even if you don't have them around you, I think there are a lot of resources out there. So I think if you take your time to go through them, I think you'll learn a lot and get to develop your own views.
Mhm. For sure. I want to end with like a quick 1 minute fire round. What's your favorite book?
Favorite book? I like to, when it comes to reading books, I want to take some time off and read something that's not related to my work.
Mhm.
So far, Da Vinci Code,
Mhm.
I would
Oh wow,
say,
that's an
was a
interesting
very
one.
interesting book that
Mhm.
I still remember. Very shocking as well,
Mhm.
but one that I enjoyed very much.
Who made the biggest impact in your career?
I would have to say, good question. I probably need to think about something like this more often. I would say my parents, because
Mhm.
honestly speaking, I can't think of any. It's hard to single out one person.
Right.
I have many mentors, and
Mhm.
I've had the privilege of getting a lot of advices,
Mhm.
and colleagues that work with me help me a lot.
Mhm.
But I think if I have to pick someone, then I would have to pick my mom and dad, who have been always supportive and always
Mhm.
encouraging to take risks and do the stuff that I want to do. So
Mhm.
it could be a boring answer, but there it goes.
I don't think it's boring. I feel like it's everyone is like always modeled after their parents, like from the beginning. Um, who would you invite to your dinner party?
Among my friends or colleagues or
Well, it's your party.
uh yeah, I think my would be great to have a big party with my friends that I haven't been able to get in touch for a long time because things get quite busy, and with your daily lives, there are people that I really liked, had a great time with in the past, but haven't been able to get in touch with. So be great to have a gathering with them and just
Mhm.
catch.
For sure. Where can we find you outside of work?
Uh, I love playing tennis. I used to play a lot of tennis, but I have two little kids at home,
Mhm.
so haven't been able to enjoy my hobby as much. But I would love to get back to playing tennis with my friends and colleagues here. I'm trying to pick up my golf
Mhm.
skills, practice, and then hit the tee with my friends. So,
Mhm.
but haven't been able to get much time with golf. But those two things I love to sometime, get
Mhm.
into and get better at.
Mm, amazing. Okay, so I want a quick shout out to Dongxue, Stephanie, and Tracy for like joining our show. I'm sorry, I like the system just showed your messages like literally right now. Like they had some questions about one person asked like if you could share your thoughts and insights on trends of AI ML implementation and like clinical indication of the medical field or hardware adoption perspective. And then one person said, like, could you touch upon a technology that will transform the future of healthcare integrated with Samsung digital healthcare health consumer device. And apparently another person said like invite us to your tennis or something. But yeah, anyway, so let's talk about like,
Yes.
I don't know if you have more time to address this, but like maybe just like a quick 1 minute view on the medical AI.
Yes,
Since
yes.
like it's a
Actually, that's a very interesting topic for us, digital health or mobile health, especially for our mobile group that
Mhm,
have a service called Samsung Health on our
mhm,
phones and watches. I think it's very interesting. We have these smart devices that we can wear.
mhm,
Our business unit launched a new product called Galaxy Ring
mhm,
recently. Um, and we can gather a lot of information, interesting information from these
mhm,
devices, from
mhm,
your fingers, from your wrist,
mhm,
and help you manage your chronic conditions better. Hopefully, help you get better
mhm,
sleep and exercise more. Um, so these things have not been really, possible in the past, but these things are coming and the technologies are getting better.
mhm,
So we think there will be a great opportunity for innovation, disruption, and business opportunity for startups.
mhm,
So outside of AI, that's one area that we're actually spending a lot of time on around
mhm,
digital health. And then AI can play a role by analyzing and understanding these signals and making helpful recommendations to patients and help with doctors around their work and around their diagnosis. Soto Medical is interesting from that perspective.
mhm,
One that I invested this year because they're helping imaging centers, for example, and hospitals take MRI images in a very efficient in a shorter time period while maintaining the quality of the image, and that's quite meaningful to patients who don't want to be stuck in an MRI machine for like half
mhm,
an hour in a very narrow, uncomfortable position. If you can, reduce the time by half,
mhm.
or even more, then that's a meaningful benefit to the patient. So that's what Soto Medical is working on, in addition to others. So yeah, a lot of interesting technologies and innovation taking place.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for the answer. And thank you everybody for joining us. And Jihong, it was like a really well-rounded conversation. Like love chatting with you as always. Thank you so much.
Thank you for inviting me to share my thoughts and then my experience on this platform. Appreciate it. It was a lot of fun. Thank you.
Amazing. Okay, I will end stream.